Hey everybody, guess what? I am the new God Nika, for I have officially eaten the Gomu Gomu no Mi, right? Now, I'm going to prepare to unlock Gear 5th, alright? Let me take a quick look exactly how Luffy unlocks Gear 5th. Okay? I see. So, all we have to do is just bang our chest, right? Is that all we gotta do? Bang the chest? Okay, I can do that. I can do that, alright? You guys just stand back, right? Watch me. Okay? Yes! Yes! I am the Sun God Nika! Heed Mu's warning. There is no such thing as a Sun God Nika. He does not exist, never has, and never will. Take it from Mu, the Great One. I am your king, your god, your savior of the world. You must trust only in me. There is no such thing as a warrior liberation. He does not exist, never has, and never will. And unfortunately, the previous host will no longer be serving upon this video. So take it upon me, Mu, for I will give you a new host. One who will serve you better, and who will respect the decision of Mu. As I bid you all farewell, have a happy, happy holiday, and a merry, merry Christmas. I bid you all farewell. Now, I trust you are all bowing before Mu, the Great One, that being me, Mu. I will bid you farewell as I introduce you to your new host. Thank you so much, Mu. I am pleased and honored to take care of this new job. Thank you so much, Lord Mu. I only respect you. I only value you. I will speak nothing of the Sun God Nika that does not exist. You have my utmost faith in you, Mu. Alright, you heard the wise one. You heard our true king. You heard him. There is no such thing as a Sun God Nika. It does not exist. Therefore, we shall not discuss this impostor. No, no, no. Instead, let's talk about a moon god, alright? Yeah, let's talk about that, right? Let's talk about the moon god, alright? Yeah, right? Hey, he said no talk about the sun god. He didn't say anything about a moon god, alright? So yeah, let's discuss the moon god, alright? Welcome everybody, I am your brand new host of this channel. I'm so sorry about the previous one and stuff like that. Feel free to do not ask questions on where he went. Despite what you guys might think, no, we are not related. Despite what you guys might also think, you look just like him. well, let's put something simple here, right? I have the better looking face, right? He doesn't, okay? Keep that in mind, right? Despite what you guys might think that we look similar, I'm the one with the better looking face. He did not, okay? Gotta keep that in mind here, okay? Alright. Now, here's how he always did it, right? He always went 1, 2, 3, please. Who the hell does he think he is? That's not how you do it. That is not how you do it. No. This is how you're supposed to do it, right? 4D Clif here in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, everybody, to a brand new One Piece video discussion, alright? I am your host for today's channel and today's topic of today's video. So let's get into it, and I hope you have a great time. Oh, and by the way, please enjoy the holidays. Alright, so yes. What am I going to be discussing in this video itself? What do I truly want to talk about itself, okay? Well, be honest here, it is really about this moon god thing, okay? Now, look, overall, let me rephrase that. The other guy talked about this moon god a whole bunch of times, right? He's made so many topics of this moon goddess like that, but please, I'm not here to discuss that. I'm here to discuss what I want to talk about, what I'm going to discuss, right? Your new host of this channel is going to discuss something else, okay? And I'm going to discuss a brand new moon god called Gara, okay? Yes, Moon God Gara, okay? So, the real question is, what exactly is Gara? Who is Gara, right? Well, it's the moon god, okay? Seriously, do I have to spell that out for you? It should be pretty obvious, okay? End the story, the end, goodbye. Like, subscribe, hit notifications, all that kind of stuff. The video's over. What are you doing? I just told you, Gara is the moon god. So you want me to go more into it, okay? You really want me to go more into this video, when you can't just simply take my word for it, okay? What, are you afraid of Moo? Please, I ain't afraid of that guy. He might be my king, he might be my true one lord, but I'm not afraid of Moo, alright? No, I'm not. Okay. So, here's the thing about this Delphoid itself, okay? So, let's start off with this, right? Now, oddly enough, when I was basically discussing this whole Moon God Deity Delphoid, and I made plenty of discussions on it so many damn times, alright? So many times, okay? The way I've always sort of thought of the idea of it is calling the actual Delphoid itself in terms, well, for instance, let's use Luffy's as an example, okay? Maybe it would be a lot easier if we start off with Luffy's for an example, okay? So Luffy's Delphoid is pretty unusual, okay? It actually has 2 names. Now, well, technically 3 names and everything in general like that, but let's just get into it, okay? So the first one is the fake name that the world government officially gave it, okay? Which is the Gomu Gomu no Mi, right? Now, Oda did confirm that this name of the Delphoid can still technically be used because it still technically works, okay? Alright? Now, you also have its official name itself, which is actually a mythical zone type known as the Hito no Mi model Nika, okay? Now, going off of that version, there's also another name that actually goes along with the Hito no Mi to make a more better fit of it itself, right? In order to sort of separate it from other human Delphoids and everything, you also have the Niko Niko no Mi, okay? So Nika obviously is just a reference to, the sun god Nika itself and everything, but it can also be seen as sort of like an onomatopoeia like that off of the word of like Nika or Niko, which can mean like smile or smiling or grinning and all that kind of stuff, okay? So, the idea here is that looking at how Luffy's Delphoid works and everything almost made me think of something similar here, okay? So wait, what if I sort of do that same concept? What if I try and do that exact same thing? Now, when it comes to it, every single time I try to talk about a moon god and everything, I always chose to label the fake name or the hidden name itself as Niko Niko no Mi, okay? Where the actual true Delphoid would be the Hito no Mi model Hari, the Hito no Mi model Hora, stuff like that, okay? That was basically the gist of it and everything itself, okay? Now, I did always think of the idea that maybe there could be 2 names itself, right? Like, one idea I was sort of thinking about for the Moon God Deity is that maybe there was a time where the Delphoid was sort of in, like, a bit of a crazy situation here and stuff like that, where one side argued that it should be called the Niko Niko no Mi, but the other side argued that it should be the Gara Gara no Mi. Obviously, Gara Gara would obviously come from the Japanese word garasu, which is actually glass, okay? Which is actually the substance glass, to be more precise, okay? Hold that thought for a minute, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm officially back. Oh, and by the way, do me one little favor, right? Make sure to do me a favor and everything. I really want to make sure that nothing happens to my poster, right? I gotta make sure that none of the cats actually climb up there and everything. So, pretend, you've seen like those Dora Explorer episodes, you've seen those Blue Clues and all those kind of things like that. You know how you're supposed to like just point and like that and say like, look behind you, behind you, behind you! I want you to get in the comment sections like that and let me know, right? I gotta make sure. I gotta keep my eyes open, alright? I don't see any cats now. Okay, so, back to the topic of the video itself, okay? So yes, anytime I basically talked about it itself, I've always chosen to go with the idea that maybe there could be a situation here where there was sort of an argument where one side would argue that it'd be the Niko Niko no Mi, and the other side would argue that it'd be the Gara Gara no Mi, okay? Now, for the idea here, I think the easiest way to sort of describe this is that it would be a little interesting if I try and make it the same way like Luffy's, but add a little bit of creativity, right? Add a little bit of a difference here, but still at the exact same time, do the exact same thing, okay? So, let's start off with this, okay? So, to basically narrow this down and everything, I think it would be easier to go over every single thing, list by list, and then we'll get into it, okay? So let's start off with the Niko Niko portion first, okay? And then I'll go into some of the Gara Gara aspects as well, and then you might get an understanding of why I'm actually choosing to do this necessarily, okay? Now, when it comes to this idea of this Delphoid itself, right? I truly believe the idea of having this Moon God Deity actually have the powers made of glass is actually a good comparison to rival it or compare it to how the sun god Nika gives that person the body made of rubber, okay? Now, yes, this could be a bit of a stretch here, and this is really just my hypothesis theory and everything. There's no official word on everything. Heck, we don't even know. Like, it could be possible that maybe this will be Loki's Delphoid, okay? Now, yes, when it comes to Loki's Delphoid, I've always suggested maybe the possibility of the Pernomi and everything, but you know what? By all means, glass could make a lot of sense, okay? Alright. So, let's start off with this, okay? So, Niko Niko is an onomatopoeia, okay? Which can basically mean smile or grinning, okay? Alright. Now, a few other things that we can relate to on Niko is that Niko can also mean two of anything, okay? So, Niko can mean two of anything, alright? Now, another thing you can relate to Niko is that Niko can be derived from the Greek word Nicholas or Nicole, which is composed of the elements of Nike, okay? meaning victory of the people, okay? Now, this is actually one idea of where Luffy's, or the idea of Nika itself, actually gets the name inspiration from, is from Nika itself, which means victory or victory of the people, okay? Which actually makes a lot of sense, okay? Now, to keep in mind here in our thing, let's just keep this very steady here, okay? I don't think the actual Greek god Nike itself actually had a body made of rubber, okay? I've never really found any truth on that and like that. Even when I've done research and everything, I could never find any proof of that. So, by all means, let's try not to be overconfident here, okay? Okay. Now, Niko is also very similar to Nika, okay? Which is the sun god Nika, okay? Which is actually a pretty unusual, pretty interesting concept here, okay? Now, yes, remember, we promised Mu that we weren't going to talk about the sun god Nika, so promise me you won't tell him. Promise me you won't tell him. Promise me. Promise me. Oh, thank you so much. We ain't speaking nothing of that imposter. That God does not exist. We serve Mu and only the Great One Mu. Okay. Now, another thing you can probably look at here is maybe Nico Robin and Nico Olivia, okay? Now, what exactly could the connection be here exactly? I'm not really sure. It's hard to really determine everything. I figured, you know what, maybe I should just add them in. Like, their names are actually Nico, so maybe I should just add them in for the sake of argument, okay? Alright. Another portion I can sort of relate here and add is Nico, which is actually has a meaning of sunlight, okay? And then when you have the related term of Gekko, which means moonlight or moonbeam, okay? Now, this is interesting in itself because technically moonlight cannot create its own light, right? Despite what some people might think, moonlight is actually created when the sun bounces light off the moon and reflects it back onto the earth. This is caused by, well, I really can't get into the whole situation of why it's how it causes and everything like that, but the whole portion is, think of the moon itself as being a reflective disk itself, okay? That it basically reflects the light off the sun that bounces off of it and then reflects it back onto the earth, which basically causes the moonlight itself, okay? So, despite what it might appear, moonlight is still sunlight, just reflected off the moon, okay? Alright. And then another portion to sort of add here on the last thing to relate to the Niko Niko no Mi, and this is actually one of the biggest things I've always gone off as with the idea of the power itself, was that even though the body was made of glass and they had Loki-like abilities, I always felt like it was a little off. I felt like it needed something else, okay? So I always chose to have the idea of allowing them to manipulate electricity and stuff like that, or basically manipulate the electricity itself. Where the Sun God Nika had the abilities made of fire, or I wanted another plasma-based ability to go along with this. And I chose lightning because I felt like it made the most sense. And then, therefore, they can use the lightning around their bodies to manipulate the light around other people. Basically, the color light around other people itself, okay? So the Niko Niko calendar is sort of the concept here. So if you're not familiar with the Niko Niko calendar, this is basically a tool that is actually used within like workplaces to help track other team members' moods and behaviors during the day in order to help understand them even better, okay? All right. So the idea here is that, you know, Niko Niko no Mi allows basically someone to manipulate the moods and behaviors of other people, okay? And allows them to basically do this by removing the colors of their light, okay? So for instance, all right, despite how it can appear like that, there are multiple things that you can actually do with this, okay? All right. So that would be the end portion of the Niko Niko concept, okay? Now, there's more to get into this video and everything, and I'm hoping to get everything done as soon as possible, okay? So I hope you guys are enjoying everything so far. I hope you guys are having fun. So let's continue on and get on any more into the glass concept, okay? Okay. So Gara Gara is an onomatopoeia with different meanings that they basically mean that an empty area, a raspy voice, rattle, and gargle, okay? So Gara Gara is an onomatopoeia that can have different meanings, such as an empty area, a raspy voice, rattle, or gargle, okay? Another thing to relate to Gara itself is actually Garasu, which I basically mentioned is glass, as in the substance glass, okay? Now, oddly enough, this is actually borrowed from the Dutch word glas, okay? So just like the Gomu Gomu no Mi itself, Gomu is actually borrowed from the Dutch word gom, Garasu is also borrowed from the Dutch word glas itself, okay? So I thought that could be a little unique. I thought that could be a little clever here in how these two are actually borrowed from the actual Dutch itself, okay? Which seems pretty cool, okay? Another thing to sort of add here is the glass transition, okay? So the glass transition is the temperature range over which the amorphous material changes from a brittle glassy state to a flexible rubbery state as they are heated, okay? Now, another thing to sort of add here, like that, is the three basic types of materials, okay? So within your range of a whole bunch of materials like that, you have your classifications, okay? You have your metals, polymers, and ceramics. And you also composites and everything, but we only need to focus on 2 of those 3 I just mentioned and everything. So glass is actually a unique type of ceramic that is labeled as a non-crystalline ceramic itself, okay? So just like with the rubber itself, just like with rubber, rubber is an elastomer itself, okay? And it's considered a unique type of polymer, okay? So polymers have 3 sets of categories, okay? You have your thermosets, your thermoplastics, and you also have your elastomers, okay? Elastomer is considered a unique type of polymer itself, which better known as rubber, okay? So rubber is basically an elastomer, okay? Now, moving on to ceramics itself, ceramics can be labeled under, well, situation here like that, ceramics can be labeled under advanced ceramics and traditional ceramics. However, within those traditional ceramics, you have 2 range of categories, right? And these are the crystalline ceramics, which are composed of a majority of all ceramics throughout the entire world itself. However, there is a side branch to that known as the non-crystalline ceramics, or the amorphous solids ones, okay? Now, amorphous just basically means no form or no shape, okay? Even rubber is technically an amorphous thing. However, when referring to an amorphous solid within the ceramic category, the better known thing is actually glass itself. Yes, glass is an amorphous solid that is also a non-crystalline ceramic, okay? Okay. So just like with glass itself, it is a unique type of ceramic. Just like rubber is a unique type of polymer, or I thought that can make the idea here of having the moon god have the body made of glass is a much more efficient thing. It just seemed to have a little bit more of a better feeling to it, okay? It just seemed to have a better fit, okay? Now, originally, one of my first ideas was to go off something like porcelain and everything, but as time grew on, I began thinking and sort of came to the realization here, it's like that, you know what? Glass made a lot more sense. Like, there was a lot more things that you could actually understand here when you basically get the concept of everything of how glass relates to the concepts of how I'm basically picturing this stealth fruit and why it just made so much sense. Okay. Now, let's talk about some things of like how glass interacts with light itself, okay? Because light actually uses a lot of features here, and it actually helps us with getting a better understanding of how this stealth fruit actually works, okay? So, glass interacts with light through refraction, which is basically bending, okay? As light enters glass, it slows and bends. Next, you have transmission, which is basically when light passes through. It is when the light passes through transparent glass that is clear here, okay? Next, you have reflection, which is bouncing off. Is when glass reflects light or an image at think of like a mirror or window itself, okay? Then you have absorption, which is basically soaking in. Is when glass absorbs some light energy to help heat up the glass, okay? And then lastly, you have scattering, which is when the glass isn't perfectly smooth, it causes light to spread in multiple directions, okay? Now, when it comes to us like that, I did mention this a little while ago, like that, but I do think the idea of having the sun god Nika fruit, which has the ability made of fire, then obviously it should only be fair that the Moon God Deity should have the abilities made of lightning. That it only seems to make the most sense, okay? No, Moo, we ain't speaking of that sun god Nika. It don't exist. We know. You won't tell him. You guys won't tell him. You won't tell him I'm saying his name, right? You know we only serve Moo, the Great One. Yeah. Now, getting back into the topic and everything, you know what? When it comes to it, I've always chosen Nami, alright? I've always chosen Nami to be the representation of this Moon God Deity itself, right? Now, what exactly is the reason for this, right? Why exactly do I want Nami to be the one, right? Well, to be very clear here on the matter, I've never been the kind of person to basically state that, oh, I absolutely want Nami to have this stealth fruit. I absolutely want it to be. No. I want Oda to tell his story the way he wants to tell, okay? If he doesn't want Nami to have a stealth fruit, that's perfectly fine, okay? Even though I've always done this and everything, it's really just sort of like me basically seeing Nami as the perfect option for this. And to be honest here, while it does seem a bit of a stretch, it always felt like it was a bit of a clever thing. I always felt like it was something to really enjoy, okay? So let me go over a few things itself. And probably one of the biggest issues, and literally I should put, I should really say it more like this, right? Literally one of the biggest issues on why I actually chose Nami for this is actually have a few color spreads, okay? So I'm sure you're all very familiar with the giant Nami color spreads, okay? I'm sure you're very familiar with them, but if not, we are going to discuss them, okay? So let's start off with this. So the first two with ice cream themes and a giant Nami. So there are 2 color spreads and everything that actually have a theme of ice cream, and Oda chose to have Nami as the giant, okay? Now, the interesting concept here is to sort of add in is, well, what's the big difference, okay? Oda likes Nami. Nami is one of his favorite female characters. And you're right, that is true. Okay, but the way I've always sort of thought about this is that it always seemed a little unusual, okay? It always seemed kind of strange, all right? So one concept here is that how I sort of came across this is when I actually decided to look up Nami's nationality, all right? So Nami's nationality is Sweden, right? Oda actually gave all the Straw Hats nationalities, okay? And you'll notice that he chose Sweden to be Nami's nationality, okay? And did you know that the Sweden word for ice cream is glass? I thought, well, wait a minute. Nami is the one who's basically standing out here, so it got me thinking, is Oda trying to give us a signal? Is Oda trying to give us a hint? Is he trying to tell us something, right? Is he trying to bang it in our heads like, come on, people, figure it out! Come on already! It's like, I don't know. Maybe. Okay? Now, the last one to go over like that is actually one that actually appeared in chapter 1156, okay? So, in this color spread and everything, you have Luffy, Nami, Zoro, and Sanji, or the Straw Hats that were chosen to be in a much bigger size compared to the other Straw Hats, okay? Now, we only need to focus on Luffy and Nami, because both Luffy and Nami were chosen to be giant size within the center focus, okay? Now, the idea here of Oda choosing Nami itself also relates to the idea of the chapter itself, which is called Idols, which actually featured the Kuja Pirates, okay? Basically, back when, Gloriosa and Shaki and everything were in their prime days, back when, Roger Pirates were still active, right? Before the whole God Valley bits, okay? And obviously choosing Nami for this, which actually makes a lot of sense, okay? And to be honest here, it actually makes a lot of sense and everything because the chapter itself is 1156 and everything, and another reading on that can be HitoGara, and stay tuned because I'm going to get back to HitoGara, okay? So stay tuned, okay? So, just like with Luffy himself, Nami was also chosen to be much bigger size compared to the other Straw Hats and everything, okay? And Luffy himself, being the son God Nika, interesting. What if the idea here that we can also relate this and sort of figure out that Oda himself truly wants Nami to be something more, right? Luffy is aiming to become king of the pirates and everything, and he became Nika, the sun god, who we are not discussing, Moo! So what if it's possible that Nami could actually become a moon god itself? Possibly. Maybe. Could be a bit of a stretch. I could be overreacting. I could. I very much could. Okay. And, looking at itself, right, just sort of add here, it's like that, Luffy and Nami are always chosen to be represented as a king and queen. And so many color spreads and everything, which makes you think that Oda truly wants something for this, okay? That Oda truly wants Nami to stand out. Is it possible that Oda wants Nami to be a princess? Is it possible that he wants her to be the god along with the other god, okay? Who is Mu, the Great One, not that imposter? Never know. Okay, and as a little extra bonus, but Nami also took center again in 1161, and a Gorosei reading of Luffy is actually 61, alright? Which makes you think, could we actually have another color spread for chapter 1173? So imagine if we actually get another chapter color spread with chapter 1073, and it actually features another Luffy and Nami center stage focus, okay? So you have 56, which is oddly enough Luffy's Delphi number. Both Luffy and Nami took center stage. Then you have 61, 1161, which Luffy and Nami again took center stage. 61 is Luffy's Delphi, okay? And then, could the possibility here is like, wait a minute, 73 is coming up. What if it's possible we'll get a color spread in 73? I could be overstretching this like that. It might not happen, but you never know these things. You never know these things, people. You never know them. Alright. Now, another thing to relate here is Hari itself, okay? So Hari can have different meanings in Japanese, okay? Now, one of the most common things you can relate to is actually needles, and we all know Nami's connection to needles, okay? But, oddly enough, when you actually use this kanji right here, this kanji can actually mean glass or crystal, okay? Which got me thinking. Interesting. Interesting itself. It could be a bit of a stretch, I could be overthinking it, but still, it just seemed natural. It just seemed to have a better fit, okay? Okay. Now, here's something interesting to basically talk about, okay? This is actually something that is probably important to truly discuss, okay? So, when it comes to the Straw Hats, you're all very familiar with the Straw Hats Delphi number theory, okay? So, there was an SBS question where someone actually asked Oda very carefully, where he mentioned to them, hey Oda, I noticed something that all the Straw Hats actually have a Delphi number pattern, okay? And now Oda himself responded to this as because the user basically asked, hey, does that mean the Niko Niko no Mi, which is Kuma's Delphi, does that mean he's going to become a member of the Straw Hats? And Oda didn't technically respond to this, but at the same time, he also didn't answer, okay? Which is kind of unusual, okay? Now, the main reason for this is that a lot of people think that Vivi is going to get the Niko Niko no Mi. Now, yes, that could be very possible. I do agree that it's very possible, okay? However, I don't think that's the case here because it also seems kind of like, well, to put it simply, and everything, because Oda didn't necessarily answer that exact same question and everything, it almost makes me think that maybe he had something else in mind. Maybe it's not the idea of the Niko Niko no Mi actually becoming a part of the Straw Hats crew, but something else, okay? something that can still relate to the 2-9 concept, okay? Alright. So the Straw Hat's Delphi numbers and stuff like that are Go Mu, which is basically 56, okay? 5 from Go and Mu, and 6 from Mutsu, okay? Next you have Hito, which is 110. 1 from Hitotsu, and 10 from To. Next you have Hana, which is 87. 8 from Hachi, and 7 from Nana. Next you have Yomi, which is 43. 4 from Yon, and 3 from Mitsu. That only leaves 29 or 92 as an option, okay? Now, 29 would probably be the best idea here, everything. I'm really hoping that it is 29, everything. But you do have to consider 92 as an option, okay? So, in Japan, there are actually 2 types of writing numerals, okay? So, you have the Arabic ones, like that, which basically features the symbol 1, 2, 3, okay? Just basically like this, okay? 1, 2, 3. And then you also have the Chinese one itself. Now, most numbers actually have 2 types of readings. One is derived from the Chinese on readings, and the other one is the native Japanese kun reading, okay? Now, when it comes to the Delph roots themselves, right? The Straw Hat's Delph roots, each number follows a pattern, right? Which is basically 4 letters, 2 sounds, okay? So, for instance, Go Mu, Hito, Hana, Yomi, okay? Every single one of them follows a unique pattern. Now, yes, it should be very clear here in mind that you do have to be very careful with following patterns, okay? Because just because Oda is following a pattern now doesn't mean he has to break away with it, okay? So, take the concept here, okay? Let's say that the Niko Niko no Mi is actually going to become a member of the Straw Hat crew, okay? That would make it the first official Straw Hat Delph root itself that actually has a member that doesn't follow the exact same pattern, okay? Where theirs were all 4 letters, 2 sounds. This would basically be, Niku, so Niku, so, yeah, so 5 letters, 2 sounds. Niku, which would be 5 letters, 2 sounds, okay? So, that is very much a possibility, okay? Now, if you take a look at this chart like that, every single one of these Straw Hats Delph roots itself, right? They've all followed the exact same pattern itself, okay? And it's not just that, but they've also followed common base numbers readings based on honor kind of readings, okay? So while there could be many different Gorosei readings and stuff like that for different numbers and everything, however, when it comes to all the Straw Hats, every single one of their Delph root numbers that Oda chose for them, and I mean all of them, represent one of the common base numeral systems itself that you could basically look at, okay? So while there are many different readings and stuff like that, such as Ge, Ke, Ka, all this kind of stuff and everything, these are more of derivative situations here, or that can also be, that can also have a different reading itself and everything, but they're not the common based ones itself. They're sort of like a little bit of extra ones that you can sort of relate to itself, okay? Because of their similarities in context, okay? And how they're basically spelled. So that got me thinking, okay, so wait a minute. If Oda does that exact same thing, okay, if Oda actually keeps that same pattern here for this concept, okay, and then we can sort of narrow down a good idea of what this Delph root could actually be. So if we're going to keep in mind with the 2-9 Delph root, because that's the number that's basically missing here and everything, or 92, then we can get a better understanding of what it can actually be, all right? So another thing to basically relate here and everything is that when it comes to the Moon God itself and everything, you know what? Actually, I'm going to come back to that one, all right? I'm going to come back to one. So, moving on, let's actually talk about Gara, okay? So, I did mention at the very beginning of the video like that, we are going to talk about Gara, okay? So, Gara itself can actually mean one's physical shape or build. It can also mean one's character, personality, or temperament, okay? Which actually relates to HitoGara, okay? Now, HitoGara is actually a good reference and idea to understand the chapter title of chapter 1156 and why it's actually called Idols, okay? And HitoGara is probably a good reference to this, okay? And like I mentioned, Hito can actually mean human, okay? So, Hito no Mi, the human fruit, and Gara itself, you know, HitoGara, Hito no Mi Gara, Hito no Mi mythical model Gara. Interesting. And keep in mind here, okay? Like I mentioned, the idea of the Niko Niko no Mi basically allowing someone to manipulate the energy around them like that in order to control all the personalities or moods of other people. And HitoGara can actually mean one's character or personality or temperament, okay? Which seems like a pretty fitting nature here, okay? And you can sort of get the idea here of what I'm actually doing here, okay? And why it actually seems to have a better fit to why I should actually go with the Hito no Mi model Gara. That it's sort of an ironic twist on like the Sun God Nika portion, okay? Where the Sun God Nika, the fake name, is the Gomu Gomu no Mi, and then you have the Hito no Mi model Nika, okay? Or the Nika Nika no Mi. So in this concept here, you could see the Niko Niko no Mi as the fake name, but then you have the true name, which is the Hito no Mi model Gara, or the Gara Gara no Mi. Okay? Now, let's actually talk about some forms here, right? Let's actually talk about the forms itself, okay? Okay. So, when it came to the idea of the forms itself, I always chose to label them as pinions, okay? I always chose to have the Del Fruits itself called pinions, okay? So, honestly, the first idea here is the second pinion, which is the glow form, okay? The user's body actually emits electricity as their body begins to glow, okay? With a bright and intense heat, plus the user can also blow air into their glassy body, allowing them to inflate parts of themselves, okay? The third part is the third opinion, which is the mirror form. The user's body now becomes invisible, can now only reflect the person who sees themselves, okay? So, for instance, right, say Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji are all looking at Nami with this Dope power while she's in this form. They can only see themselves. Luffy can only see himself, Zoro can only see himself, Sanji can only see himself, okay? And it's not just them personally, but it's also their voice, movements, and mannerisms, and all that kind of stuff, okay? Next, we have the fourth pinion, which is the window form, alright? The user's body returns to its original appearance, but with a clear body that shows the outside world looking in, alright? So, say for example, say Nami does have this stealth, okay? That means that, let's say you're actually coming across Nami while she's in this form, okay? You're inside, in a room that has, like, no windows to see the outside world. No windows, no doors, no nothing. And yet, when you're looking upon Nami's body, you're seeing the outside world, right? You're seeing a different world on the outside, okay? You're seeing, like, a massive storm all inside her body, all inside her glassy body, okay? The body shatters. And then all of a sudden, you're pulled into a vast, different wasteland, okay? That is controlled by different weathers, right? The same weather you saw, you're now trapped inside. You're basically pulled into into some kind of voidic areas like that, where Nami is now in control of the weather inside the glassy body itself. The glassy body is nothing more than just a mere defense mechanism. The real puppet master is inside the glass body itself. And then lastly, we have the fifth one, which is called fifth pinion, is the awakened form, okay? And the user has now fully awakened their Del Fruit, as they are now able to turn their surroundings into glass and remove the colors as well. This form takes inspiration from glass arts, paint on glass animations, prisms, and rainbows, okay? The user closely resembles Nika, but their hair has become indigo, or basically a midnight blue. The body has become shiny and glossy. The user's outfit becomes silver, with their cloud and scarf having a rainbow-like effect, okay? The HitoGara, Gara, aka the Niko Niko no Mi, is a mythical zone-type Del Fruit that transforms the user into legendary Moon God Gara, granting the glassy-like body of Gara and the ability to manipulate and control others' moods or personalities. The fruit is also known as the Niko Niko no Mi, which can also be classified as a rare Logia type with special abilities. Even though the user's body has become permanent state of glass, but they are capable of reforming their shattered glassy body back to normal, just like Logias can. But they can also use the natural elements to help with their transformations. The fruit is an indigo oblate-shaped fruit with a stem sprouting out the top, with swirl-S patterns surround the fruit, and a sharp, glassy, peeled skin surrounding the fruit itself. Its overall appearance greatly resembles a kanpai, better known as the Enahim Queen Splash. Okay, so this video is kind of drawing very long itself, right? As a matter of fact, it looks like it's already getting past like a full hour since I really made this video itself, and I really want to try and get this done. So, you know what? I think that's all I'm going to basically discuss here. I think that's all I'll basically talk about. Everything. So the idea here is basically to narrow down is that, you know what? Going with the idea of this made it a little more interesting, right? Choosing to go with this name itself not only made more of a better fit to relate it to the Sun God Nika, who we are not discussing, Mu, the Great One. We are not discussing that imposter. It made it feel much more significant, okay? It made it feel much more nonsense, okay? Now, the idea here is that when you understand, okay, and just like I mentioned, one of the ideas here of HitoGara, meaning, you know, obviously one's character's personality and temperament and all that kind of stuff, you kind of get the idea here is that, wait a minute, that can still work. So Gara Gara itself could still be utilized. Just like how you can relate the connection here to glass, but also relate to the idea of HitoGara having one's temperament or personality, or one's character, or even physical appearance or shape. And obviously, the idea of the glass itself and how I can basically define like how you can actually do it and how you can form the body however you physically want. Like one idea I actually got here is that maybe the user can actually shatter their glassy body, but not only that, they can reform it, but they can also reform it around other people and other things, okay? Allowing them to actually take the concept here is that maybe an idea of the name itself could actually be the empty no mi, okay? So empty no mi could also imply here that, you know, it's an empty area or space, but it can also apply to like, you know, an empty set of feelings, emotions, and all that kind of stuff. Just something to sort of narrow down a bit of an idea, a concept, okay? All right. So, yes, overall, I could be overthinking this, okay? I could be completely stretching my complete mind on this and everything. I mean, choosing to use Nami as the basics of this does seem a bit of a stretch, but it always seems like something I really wanted to enjoy and something I really wanted to take into concept, okay? Now, you don't have to necessarily like anything I discuss in this video itself, but I do hope you would understand that my ideas is just sort of a concept to enjoy, okay? So, that will do it for the end of this video and everything. I hope you had a great time and hope you enjoyed my content. Feel free to let me know by smashing that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit notifications. I'll be back soon with another video as soon as I can. So thank you so much. You'll have a great day. And remember everyone, we only serve the Great One Mu. He is our only true God. And remember, you promise, you're not going to tell him I spoke about you know who. Okay. So, that will do it for today's video. Once again, you guys have a happy holidays and enjoy your Merry Christmases, okay? Okay. Goodbye, everybody.